Welcome to this course of Introduction to Smart Regions, Smart City and Smart Villages. This is Dr. Rashmi Asht, and today I am going to talk about city planning, history and theory. This is Unit 1. So, we are talking about city planning, history and theory both. So, the objectives of the unit are to understand the fundamental of some important concepts of regional planning and development. Then we will talk about what is the concept of a region. Then to appreciate urban and rural settlements, regional planning and development theories. And last, to know about the historical background of cities. What is a region? Concept of a region and its delineation, which is very important. The planning of regional development is focused with the term region. In fact, this is where it all begins. Over the years, the notion of the area has been the topic of debate, with a fair amount of disagreement and divergence of the view. It is very difficult to define a region because the concept has been used by different people to mean different things. That means you can create your own region for a certain purpose. To some, the region is real object that can be positively classified as natural region, whereas to others it is only a work of fiction, a classification system. Now talking about the classification of regions. So region could be formal, it could be nodal, it could be a planning region. Starting with formal region. The formal region is concerned with uniformity and defined according to homogeneity. A formal region is a geographical area which is homogeneous in terms of selected geographic criteria. That is, it could be topography or climate or selected economic criteria, for example, per capita income levels or social or political criteria, party alliance, etc. Then nodal regions. Functional regions are also known as nodal or polarized regions. Ebenezer Howard was the first to propose the concept of nodal region as a solution to the issues of vast urban areas, because it is very difficult to delineate that where we should start and where we should stop. It emphasizes interdependence or linkages. It is composed of heterogeneous units such as cities, towns, villages, which are nevertheless functionally interrelated. Now talking about planning region. The term planning region is defined in a variety of ways. Planning regions are geographical areas that are ideal for developing and implementing development plans to address the regional issues. As we have learned now that how to delineate a region. So delineation of region could be formal, based upon the single feature or based upon multiple features through, it could be fixed methods through variable index method to cluster method, or it could be nodal regions again based upon flow analysis, gravitational analysis and any other virtues on the basis of which you want to do the research or develop a area. Planning regions in India, it was under number 1 Sen-Gupta scheme. There are 7 planning regions. Number 1, the northern eastern region, the eastern region, the northern central region, the central region, the northwestern region, the western region and the southern region. And town and country planning organization divides it into 13 macro and 35 meso regions. These are South Peninsular, Central Peninsular, Western Peninsular, Central Deccan, Eastern Peninsular, Gujarat, Western region, Aravalli region, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, Trans-Indo-Gangetic plains and hills, Ganga-Yamuna plains, Lower Ganga plains, northeastern regions. This is how they delineate a region in India. The whole of the country is divided like this. Coming to regional planning. So regional planning is a strategy for boosting the country's economy basically. It is a mechanism for assessing the potential of subnational territories and developing them into nations' overall advantage. So, regional planning is an instrument through which optimal utilization of space and optimal distribution of pattern of human activities can be achieved. It is both comprehensive and consolidative. Consolidative in the sense that it connects to other types of planning such as national, sectoral, village planning, and comprehensive in the sense that it addresses to social, economic, physical, technological aspects of the planning issues. Regional planning is primarily concerned with the functional issues that arise at the regional level. On the other hand, it focuses on the issues that can only be determined for the areas much larger than the current local planning authorities. Jurisdictions such as population, employment, movement, circulation, etc. On the other hand, it deals with the inter-regional population and employment flows, resource availability and utilization. Now, talking about urban and rural settlements as the way you have to deal, whether it is urban or rural, the region will differ. Settlement is what? Settlement is a place where people live and interact with each other through various activities. It is basically an occupants unit comprising of grouping and arrangement of two basic elements, that is houses and roads. So, Brunches in 1952, according to him, settlement is topographic expression of grouping and arrangement of two fundamental elements, that is houses and highways. So, the place where you live and how to reach that place or interact with the system or the society. Dickon and Pitts said that settlement refers to grouping of the people and houses into hamlets, village towns and cities. According to Rubinstein, J.M. 1990, settlement refers to permanent occupation of the site by a group of individuals. Coming to urban settlements. As such, there is no population, universal population criteria for the identification of urban areas in different countries. Varying minimum size of population is prescribed and all the areas having population greater than this size are termed as urban areas. Now, UN report and its definition, its concept says that the administrative area is important, population size, local government areas, local urban characteristics, predominant economic activity will decide whether the area is urban or not. Talking about global level criteria, Denmark says if it is 250 inhabitants or more, then it is urban. Greenland says 300 inhabitants, USA says 2,500 inhabitants and India says 5,000 inhabitants, Korea says 40,000 inhabitants. So, as such every area has a different criteria, and the criteria in India says a minimum population of 5,000, at least 75% of the male working population should be engaged in non-agricultural activities or pursuits, and the density of the population at least should be 400 persons per square kilometer, then an area can be called urban. Urban settlements in India, that means number of towns, outgrowths, etc. are like this. Today, according to 2011 census, we have 4,041 statutory towns against 3,799 2001 census. Census towns around 4,000 and against 2001 census, which were around 1,362. Urban agglomerations 475 against 384, which was in 2001, and outgrowths 981 against 962. In India, the towns are classified as per Census of India. There are class 1 towns above 1 lakh people, which are also called metropolitan cities. Class 2 between 50,000 to 99,999. Class 3 towns between 20,000 to 49,999 population. Class 4 towns have 10,000 to 19,999. Class 5, 5,000 to 999, and class 6 having population less than 5,000 people. If they have other characteristics but less population, then also it can be. Now, functionally also towns and cities in India are classified. Like you must have heard of mining towns like Dhanbad, Raniganj, Jahira, etc. Industrial towns like Coimbatore, Jamshedpur, Bhilai, etc. Basic character is industrial. Administrative towns with the headquarters like Chandigarh, New Delhi, Srinagar, Chennai, etc. Transport cities which are primarily engaged in export and import like Kandla, Kochi, etc. Educational towns, as the name says, the hub of education like Roorkee, Aligarh, Pilani, Allahabad, etc. Commercial towns which are known for their trade and commerce like Kolkata. Cantonment towns which have cantonments like Ambala, Jalandhar, Udhampur, etc. Then religious and cultural towns which rose to prominence as religious centers such as Varanasi, Mathura, etc. And tourist towns where tourism is important like Shimla, Panchmari, Jodhpur, Nainital, Mussoorie, and many more. Coming to the rural settlements. Now, rural settlements, there are various types of rural settlements, like it could be hamleted settlement, they are just a tiny collection of houses. It could be a compact settlement where they have dwellings are concentrated in one central site. Semi-compact where the villages equals more than half of the hamlets. Then dispersed rural settlements if the number of villages is less than half hamlet number. So, rural settlements refer to cluster of dwellings called villages together with the surroundings landform from which the inhabitants derive their sustenance, or in other words we can say any settlement in which most of the people are engaged in primary activities such as agriculture, forestry, mining, fishing can be termed as a rural settlement. Now, pattern of rural settlements in India. This way also according to their topography, according to their layout also they are classified as linear pattern, rectangular pattern, square pattern, circular pattern, radial pattern, or it could be T-shaped or Y-shaped. There are various problems of rural settlements in India. Some of them are: number 1, housing. Why? Because the houses are made of mud, wood, thatch, and they remain vulnerable to the damage during heavy rains, floods, or other natural calamities. Second is the physical infrastructure. That means supply of potable water to the rural settlements in underdeveloped and developing countries where people don't get adequate potable water and villagers have to walk long distances to fetch the drinking water, and same goes for the other infrastructure like sewerage and solid waste management. Then comes the social infrastructure. So, providing adequate health and educational infrastructure for these large rural population is also a huge challenge. They have to depend upon their nearest urban settlements. Last is the natural and the man-made disasters and the vulnerabilities. So, rural areas in most of the countries of South Asia experience natural and man-made disasters like drought, flood, etc. There are various theories and models which are built by different researchers to develop the towns and the rural areas so that our future generations can enjoy a better quality of life. These theories are based on economic growth theories. That means until the middle of 20th century, a low level of development and poverty were deemed very normal, and they were not a subject of research to find solutions to ameliorate these conditions. only in 1950s did the first will-based theory came into economic development and the underdevelopment causes emerged. Then there are dualism and theories of modernizations with different researchers, they contributed to it. There are dependency models also, and the dependency hypothesis focuses on the issues such as export dependency, deterioration in trade terms, import substitution and so on, and explains poverty and stagnation in development nations through these phenomena. There are basic need models, as they say that it talks about the basic needs pertaining to their income and services. There are ecological models where they talk about that man is a part of the ecosystem and it should address the things, development should address to the surroundings, and they can use the economic resources in a sustainable manner. Spatial organization and central place theory by different models there like von Neumann model is there, Christoffels theory is there, Losch model is there. They all talk about spatial organization of the cities so that we get better development. Coming to historical background of the cities. Now cities were always there in the times, as we have go through the history. We talk about Sumerian cities between 12,000 and 3000 BC. Sumerian towns flourished. The Sumerian city was built to be defensive and small. So every city has its requirement, and then the character emerges depending upon for which purpose the city is built for. The structure was built horizontally along them to adjust to the climate. Coming to Egyptian cities, because the Nile river was too wide for navigation, Egyptian civilization grew only on one side of the river. The cities were ringed by walls to protect them from Nile's floods. The houses were of various sorts and sizes. Again, the income group had always played a role in the history. Coming to Greek cities, the Greek towns were physically split into three sections, one for the gods, one for governance and one for living quarters. The city plan was designed to accommodate all three kinds of people, the artisans, the workers and the soldiers. The towns were built to meet the needs of sanitation, defense and circulation. Coming to Roman cities, they conquered almost the whole world. From the 6th century BC through the 5th century AD, Roman civilization developed. The towns were mainly divided into three categories: Colonia, Oppidum and Castrum. Medieval cities. Near the settlement center, the religious leadership occupied the highest level of land. This was the character of medieval city. The city council, as a symbol of the people, was located near the settlement's geometrical center. The churches, monastery, castle or feudal lords dominated the early towns. It was surrounded by church square, a market plaza, a town hall and guild halls. Again the change came, and with the development came the neoclassical or the Renaissance period. The Renaissance began in the mid 14th century and continued till 17th century. The settlements ranged in population from few hundred to 5 lakh people. Towns were constructed within the walking distance, days walking distance of one another, that is 20 to 30 miles. There was no sewage disposal system. Infrastructure was in place, although thus trash was dumped on the streets. Then came industrial revolution and transport and development. Cities were first to implement mass transit system, that is public transportation. Electric railroads were introduced in 1885 and the internal combustion engines were developed, both of which contributed to increase in congestion only. Development of town around the factories and development of factories in the town had led to development of factory towns. And after that all mess, as we saw in Paris, the City Beautiful movement came. In 1893, Chicago hosted a world fair in response to negative effects manufacturers were having on urban life. In contrast to the confined, repetitive and unsightly cities, a desire of a fair that was large, broad and a beautiful city was felt. The strategy was make no little plans, think big. Here came the concept of garden cities. So, garden cities should have all the advantages of both village and town. It is a beautiful functional city with a population of 30,000 people. The town around 100 acres size. The town is bypassed by a railroad which meets the town at a tangent. This was Letchworth city, which first came in 500 acres and meant to house 35,000 people with 3,000 acres of green belt surrounding it. It had a population of roughly 16,000 people and 100 factories by 1947. As a result, Howard's fantasy was gradually crushed by the invasion of the people and industries. There was no distinguishing feature between Letchworth or any other city. Further development was there and Welwyn made a new city. The second garden city started in 1920, having 2,400 acres, which was initially made for 4,000 persons, but by 1947 it again was housing about 18,000 population and 70 factories, and again was a failure. Then again came further the concept of satellite towns. So, Raymond Unwin proposed the notion of satellite towns. Sir Barry Parker was commissioned by the Manchester Housing Committee in 1926 to create a satellite garden town to ease the pressure caused by the city's congested forms. By 1935, Wythenshawe had been built to accommodate 4,000 people. The township of Becontree came after that. Coming to history of towns in India. So, India was also developed in its times, and again it started, we all know, with Indus Valley civilization, which thrived for 3,000 years BC according to carbon studies of the bones found in the Indus Valley. So, the first city was Mohenjo-daro. The city was divided into three distinct groups of divisions: the religious, institutional and cultural areas around the monastery, the Great Bath, the western part including the temple. The northern part was principally for the production of agriculture and industries, and the southern part principally for the administration, trade and commerce at the meeting of the East Road and the first street near the palace. In the Buddhist period, this time it relates to Europe's Greek period. The popularity of the Hindu thought was waning, and a new ideology emerged that placed a premium on the construction of Buddhist prayer halls and the stupas. So, it was the Mauryan period, the Gupta period, and then came Vastu Shastra, which was most likely written in the 66th century AD. Then came medieval period. During the post-Gupta period from AD 600 to about AD 1000, northern India saw a decline in urban growth. The cities which grew and flourished during this period are Ludhiana, Hisar, Jaipur, Agra, Kota, Indore, Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, Mysore and Vijayanagar, etc. Vijayanagar was founded in the 14th century. Temples, castles and gardens were abundant in the Vijayanagar town. Then came the Renaissance period in India. The Mughal Empire in India coincides to the Europe's Renaissance period. In the Mughal period, it was characterized by pomp and splendor and was as well as a distinct architectural style that peaked during Shah Jahan's reign. During the Mughal era, Just a few towns were planned and built. Fatehpur was built in Sikri by Emperor Akbar. Maharaja Jai Singh laid the foundation stone for the city of Jaipur in 1753. Jaipur used to be well kept roadways with geometric perfection and architectural accuracy. Talking about modern towns, several towns and cities, particularly the port towns in India, owe their origin and development to the British and Europeans. Surat, Daman, Goa, Pondicherry, etc. are few of the examples. In the British period, the creation of 3 metropolitan cities happened, like Mumbai, which was Bombay, Chennai, that was Madras, and Kolkata, Calcutta, was the main contribution of the British in India. They also established the administrative centers, hill towns, and introduced the cantonment towns and the civil lines. Several industrial and towns and cities like Jamshedpur were also developed during the British period in India. Coming to post-independence period, new towns and cities were established by central and state governments. Many new cities, capital cities were created like Chandigarh, Gandhinagar, Itanagar, etc. Growth of iron and steel industry gave birth to the new towns like Durgapur, Raurkela, Bhilai, etc. And several old towns have grown as satellite towns like Ghaziabad, Noida and Faridabad as we see today. So this was all about the history of towns and cities in India. Thank you very much.